Welcome to the Mind Body Podcast, your rebellious podcast about a strong body, calm mind, healing, and fully living. I'm your host, Maria Angelova, creator of the Angelova Method, an integrative approach to mind and body connection. The Angelova Method redefines your success equation to include a healthy body and a healthy mind. Hi, Rebels, and welcome to the Mind Body Podcast, your rebellious podcast with me, your host, Maria, where it is all about a strong body, calm mind, healing, and fully living. And your treat today is my special guest, Laura Giles, who is a holistic trauma specialist and hosts spiritual retreats which are all about inner transformation. Laura, welcome, and thank you for being with us here today.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, Laura, I'm so excited to have you here today because I'm such a believer in the power of retreats and spiritual retreats and connecting to your inner self and how transformational that is. And before we start talking about that, give us 3 words that tell us who Laura is and a little bit of a backstory behind each word.
Oh, okay. My 3 words are going to be grounded, curious, and open. So grounded, I think everything starts with grounding. You got to have your feet on the ground. I think a lot of times people that I come in contact with anyway, are really preoccupied with the spiritual and opening the third eye and all of that kind of thing. But my experience is that if you don't have your feet on the ground, then working on this part, that top of it, is actually ungrounding. So grounded, I think, is super important. Curious, because that can take you everywhere. You know, who knows, the sky's the limit as long as you're open, which is my next word. Then so many things can happen, and you can meet new people that you might not have otherwise met. You can go anywhere. It's just, I think it keeps life exciting. So I really like those qualities. And I'm so glad you asked that question.
You know, I so believe in the power of curiosity because my entire life I have been that kid. Well, I was the nerd in school. And I was that kid that always had questions. And then I went into college and I always had questions. And then I went into the workforce and I always had questions. And it got to the point, even today, when I meet people, I just have to give them a warning and be like, hey, just so you know, I ask a lot of questions. I'm not testing your knowledge. I just want to understand and I just want to know. So it's that innate curiosity that, I don't know, I love to learn from people and learn from their experience and their wisdom. And I think it is such a great skill to have, to stay continuously open.
Yeah, I think that a lot of, at least in trauma, a lot of my clients have had that shut down. And it's a challenge to open it back up again, because it can be so risky if you think you're going to be judged or, you're going to have the wrong answer. So yeah, I totally believe that curiosity is just such a gift.
It's a powerful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Laura, let's talk about grounding. I think probably most people today have heard of grounding and it's good to ground. I don't know that many people understand what it means to ground. So can we start with the basics and give us your basic explanation of what is to be grounded?
Sure. So I'm coming from a mental health trauma perspective. So when I'm talking about grounding, so you can go outside and ground on the earth. I like that too. I think that's super energizing and grounding in that way. But what I'm talking about, I think, is more broad. I'm talking about the stuff that keeps us from going into trauma and the stuff that keeps us from time traveling and getting carried away from the present moment. So I'm talking about things like having a healthy lifestyle and practicing mindfulness and eating well and just taking time to really slow down and just be present. So for example, my friends and I had went on a retreat. So we spent all this time together. And then we went out to lunch right after. And we had just had all this time together, but we had a 3-hour lunch because we were just really savoring the food, really enjoying each other. And there was no gossip or anything like that. It wasn't about social media or pop culture. We were really just talking to each other about each other and sharing ourselves, and the time just flies. So things like that, I think, are really grounding. just taking time to savor life, look at the sky, smell. Like right now it's October, and you've got the people are starting up their fireplaces, and so you have this smell of the burning wood in the air, and just really taking a moment just to smell that. All those kinds of things to me are grounding, because no matter what happens, I'm here. I'm not going to be flying off the handle and time travel into the past where, well, this happened in the past, so therefore I have to react that way. No, I'm right here. And so typically whenever's what's happening right here is not that big of a deal, as long as I'm not adding all this other stuff to it. So yeah, grounding, I like the put your feet on the soil and, get the energy from the earth. Love that. Love the nature walking and the, what do you call it when you walk in the forest bathing? I think those things are kind of grounding, but it's really just the more basics for me.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more, because just today I was talking to a client and we were talking exactly about being present into no matter what you do. It could seem to be the most insignificant thing, like having lunch with friends. And my mom knows that about me. Sometimes I have to squeeze lunch in between clients or between teaching and between meetings. I really do not like to rush through my meals. I like to savor my food, like smell it, feel the texture of it, like really taste it. There is so many opportunities to ground, like I have a raspy voice today, so I have like my lemon water, like just to take a couple of sniffs. But in the day of go, we forget.
Yeah.
Like we don't have to sit and meditate. We don't have to go and hug the tree.
Right.
The opportunities to ground are all around us in every single interaction, in every little activity that we do.
Yeah.
So going back to the basics is so important. So thank you for highlighting that.
Yeah.
And you brought up something else that's really important, being present and not going into the past. From my experience, when people go into the past and people do things when they're not consciously aware they're doing things or reacting in a way, it's because they lack the awareness how their past experiences, maybe trauma, is affecting their reactions today and their life today.
Yes.
A trauma coach, I'm sure you deal with that all the time.
All the time.
How do you help people to become more consciously awake, consciously aware, whatever is the term that you would like to use, so that they can be present and not take that baggage from the past, and also to let go of that baggage? I love to talk about forgiveness. We can dive into that too. Well, give me your experience in the way you approach things in your world.
Well, I work holistically and often through the body. So I'm going into things that bypass the intellect. So if we start going into story and stuff, that's not where I want to go, because the mind has a story which may not have anything to do with the truth. So when you go into the emotions and into the body, then you find these links to stuff that you're just like, oh my God, I didn't realize that I even was thinking that, or this was related to that. So for example, like I might have a pain in my neck and I go to the chiropractor or to the acupuncturist or something for this pain in my neck. And I'm thinking, oh, I tweaked it. I slept wrong. I did this. But if you go through it energetically, it could have a totally different story. I go into it and then it's like, oh, I'm mad at my mom. And you're like, what? How did that get there? But that's what I'm talking about. So you do that a few times with people and they start making the connections and they start seeing how important it is to be present in the moment. Because if you're not present in that moment, you're going to carry it to the future with you, and probably in a way that you don't like, in a way that's going to show up that's bigger than the moment calls for. So if the waitress brings me the wrong food, then I get real crabby and it's like, wow, I can't believe I did that. What was that about? And it has something that doesn't have anything to do with her or the food. And so you got to learn how to let go of that baggage in the moment. That's what I mean. So you don't carry it to the present, and it's much bigger. It's just there to get your attention, to say, hey, there's something here that's unresolved. But once you do see how that those links work, then it makes you more conscious and be like, oh, I don't want to do that again. Let me pay more attention.
Yeah. I, once again, couldn't agree with you more, because when I started my practice of teaching Pilates, I started it as a fitness practice. It was just come get your exercise. And then I started seeing how people's pattern of movements would change.
Yeah.
I would realize that their patterns of movements are changing based on something that's going on in their life. Yes, the way they slept, they slept wrong, they didn't eat right, they didn't hydrate right, but also they maybe had an argument with somebody, or their chronic stress is really there, or they got really reactive to something. And I started digging into that and going, oh my gosh, there is a correlation, and our body always speaks to us.
Yeah.
And I mean, my practice is like in a very different place today, because I do the same thing. It's like I create that awareness of what is your body telling you? How do you feel today? Learn to tune into your body and to listen to those signals that the body is giving you, aches and pains in the body, to what you say could be physical, but could also be related to something emotional, something mental that's out there. So I totally believe and know it's true what you're saying based on the work that I see firsthand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then you said something else, blanking. Sometimes that happens to me. You talked about the body and seeing the body. Not carrying that into the future. Another thing that I ask people to do is to observe things that trigger them. So to your point, something little like, or somebody cuts you in traffic, like really not a big deal, but you get so fired up. Like, what is that about?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think we need to pay attention to that because our body is telling us things. And I see a lot of people who, they might have all these stories and oh, this happened, that happened, this happened. It was so terrible. Yeah, but I'm past that now. That doesn't bother me. But if you ask the body, it's telling a totally different story. So your head might be okay, but your inside might not be okay. And I think you're not really okay until it's holistic and everything is on the same page. And you're not going to really know that unless you start exploring.
Yes. Being curious, going back to what we started.
Right.
Curious. Laura, you do a lot of your work through retreats.
Yes.
Tell me why in your world, in your experience, are retreats so powerful? I love retreats.
So I didn't start out doing retreats, actually. That was a COVID thing. It became necessary because of COVID. I started out doing sacred travel. So we would go to different places around the world for a week, 2 weeks, things like that. And then when COVID came, then travel was much more restricted and it switched to retreats. And what I found in retreats is that when you're with the same people over a period of time, you get closer. It's more intimate. So that thing that I was talking about with lunch, you have time to savor and get to know each other. And if it's a safe place, then really juicy things are going to come out because you have this safe place. And so I grew up with that. That was just every day. And I didn't realize that a lot of people didn't. And if you didn't, then you don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to talk about it because it's not an intellectual thing. It's a felt sense. When you're eating with people, you're releasing oxytocin and it feels good and you're laughing. And so you get this closeness that you might not otherwise get. And so with all this bonding on the healing and the vulnerability that's happening, magic just happens. And it's holistic in that it's happening to me, it's happening to you. The stars feel different, the ground feels different, everything feels more alive. And then you can take it home with you because you've had the felt sense of it. So it's not intellectual. It's not like, oh, I just heard this motivational speaker and now I feel really powerful and then it fades in 90 days. Because that's a different kind of experience. When it's a lived experience and it's day after day and it's reinforced, it's like a light comes on and it's like, oh my God, I get it. And totally different. So I've really loved retreats for that. I think they're so powerful.
Once again, I completely agree with you. Excuse me. In the beginning, when I started doing retreats, a few people asked me, well, how is a retreat different than vacation? I do think retreats are different than vacation. Because I would say when we go on vacation, sometimes all the self-care rules kind of fall out to the side. You eat a little bit more of this and that. You drink a little bit more. The sleep is off. And it's good and it's fun and it's great. I highly encourage vacations. But I think when you go with a group of like-minded people who are interested into grounding, into being present, into growing, into discovering into more of who they are, and you have that amazing opportunity to not be on the phone and the computer and the distractions and the family and the obligations and responsibilities. And it's all about you. And you have the space and the time to really connect your senses to what you were talking about.
Yeah.
It's a completely different experience.
Totally. Yeah. And I don't ever tell anybody you can't be on your phone. You can do whatever you want. It's your time. Nobody's ever on their phone. I think you just get into this groove where now is so important. And, maybe you check it in the morning, maybe you check it at night. But when we're together, nobody has their phone out and everybody has eye contact. And it's just so connected.
Yeah. Well, I discourage people from being on their phone, and you can kind of see like the morning time and the first day is kind of high. The second day goes down. By the third day, nobody is interested in being on the phone or checking email or anything like that, which also I think creates awareness of the self-imposed beliefs that we have of how much we have to be connected to the phones and
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I can't be there. They can't do it without me. And then you're like, oh, wow, they just survived the week without me.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a big paradigm shift.
It's a big shift in so many ways. Very good. Why would you tell somebody who has never been on a retreat to go check out the retreat?
It's hard so everything that I think is really magical about change work happens in the unconscious and happens in the place where there's no words. So it's very hard to put that into words to tell somebody you got to do this. So here's what I do. I let testimonials speak for me. So when somebody comes back, they're like, oh my God, this was so amazing. There's really no replacement for that because you hear the excitement. And if you know this person, you feel like, wow, you really are so different. And that, they were not like this before. So I think it's more like that. If you can feel that, then you're just like, sign me up. And what's so funny, they're going to kill me for saying this out loud, but I'm going to say it. So I have a friend who started out as a client, but she's been on so many now that we're friends. And she says that this happens to her every time she comes on a retreat. And then her friends are like, tell me about this retreat. I have to go. She's like, well, they're full, or she won't really tell them where to go because she's like, this is my place. You can't come, because it'll be a different place with them because like you were saying, this is me time. And so this isn't true for everybody. Sometimes you want your bestie there, or sometimes you want your spouse there. But if it's me time and you're there and you're somebody I have in my day-to-day life, then maybe I can't be me the way that I want to. So I totally get that she does that. And I'm not disappointed in that at all. You just got to find your own thing, I guess.
Couple of things that you say. One is that it's hard to describe.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I tell people about how my life has changed through making this little move, I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah.
Because it is so different. And a lot of the difference is how I feel inside. I feel, just today I was thinking, wow, I feel so in peace and so fulfilled with what I do. I don't know how you describe that to somebody especially to somebody who has not experienced it.
Yeah. And that's another reason why I think it's so good to go with a group. So I've done tons of retreats by myself. Mm-hmm. But when you have other people with you who have done the same thing you have, you just look at them and they look at you and it's like, yeah, we know what you're talking about. And no words have crossed. And, there's just this heart thing. And remember that when we were, yes. And you haven't even said anything.
It's great when you have a tribe, a community of people who are experiencing and can relate to those experiences. Because I think the other part is if you happen to be somebody who is growing and you don't have the community, the tribe of like-minded people who are going through the same experience you're going, it can be challenging.
For sure.
It can be lonely. You feel a little bit crazy. The things that you're experiencing, the feedback, you might feel judged. Mm-hmm. You might feel like, what is wrong with me that I'm enjoying it, right? Almost like guilty.
Yeah.
You might hear feedbacks like, oh, wow, now you have time to go to retreats, right? And it's like, yes. So I do think it is extremely important to have a tribe of like-minded people who can relate to you, to your experiences, to your growth, to the challenges that are on the road in your transformation. Mm-hmm. And I think retreats are a beautiful opportunity to create community because you get to spend multiple days with those people.
Yeah. And that's really why I started. So I started, like I said, with tours. And what happened was I just had such an amazing time that there's no way I could just keep it to myself. So I was like, okay, I'm going back and I'm taking people with me. And each time it has just been amazing. And you just never know, just be open to what the moment presents and magic happens every single time.
Yeah, it's magical. It truly is magical. And
Mhm.
it's such a beautiful experience when people are like, wow, I don't want to go back.
Yeah,
Right? They're like, I want to be here. This is so nice. And I also think it creates that great awareness of what it is like to be grounded into the little things, going back to
yes.
the start. Because I grew up in a family where we always had dinner together and it was a big family thing. And I mean, I'll tell you, even with my schedule, we don't have that in my family every night.
Mm.
And it's, as my daughter is growing up, it's creating awareness in me of like, that was very important part of my growth.
Mhm.
So I forget what I was going with that. But yes, the power of experiences, the power of community, the power of, it's almost like you're amplifying your senses. I don't know if that makes sense to
Totally
you.
agree. Yeah. So I have a word for that. It's sensual seeing. And
Okay.
it makes everything so sensuous.
Yes, it does. And just the way you see colors, the little things that you pay attention to. I mean, a frequent question I ask people is like, on your right here, did you pay attention? Like, what's the sky like? Were
Mm.
there clouds? Was it blue? Right? Because we're so go, go, go,
Mhm.
that we're so zoned out of the present moment.
Yeah. I do. One of the things that I have done for a long time is facilitate past life regression. And as a result of that, very early on in my life, is I said to myself, I don't want to not be here. I
Mm.
want to feel like I have lived, because so often in anybody's life, mine and all of my clients, you get through the whole thing and it was like you weren't even there. You're too busy escaping the drudgery, the pain, the this, the that you don't really experience any of it. And I want to experience all of it, because the nasty parts are what makes the good parts so good. I mean, the contrast, that's how we live. That's how we know what anything is from the contrast. So
Yeah.
I want the negative parts too.
Well, again, as I was just talking this morning to somebody, the negative part is where we grow.
That's
Because
right.
the negative parts are the negative, and are they really negative? Because I do think that things happen into our life for a reason, and the negative, a lot of the opportunities for growth are thrown our way because there is a lesson for us in there.
Yeah.
And that's where we start discovering more of who we are. That's where we hear that inner talk. That's where we might experience some of the past, whether it's generational or whatever is coming out from our childhood. And it's not so much fun. You kind of feel like you want to press the fast forward button, but that's where we're really starting to blossom and open up.
That's right. Yeah. And
And
I think if you are super happy and you have a lot of goodness and gratitude in your life, then sometimes those negatives could be novel. So for me, I've never really experienced grief. I haven't had anybody close to me die, fortunately. And for a long time, it was just kind of like, what is that like for other people? They're telling me their stories. I don't really know. And then I had a past life regression where I was grieving and I was like, oh, that's what it's like. And because I was so removed from it, it became a curious thing like, wow, wow, that's kind of cool. And then later my dog died. Now I really know what it is. But but yeah, I mean, I think sometimes these things can be novel if you're having a sensuous lifetime, everything's pretty cool. It's like, wow, how low can this go? How dark can this go? It's all good. You're going to pop out on the other side if you keep going. So those kinds of things don't scare me anymore.
well, I think you're bringing an important part in, and that's the part about perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, things happen that we don't want to happen, or things don't go our way, and we want to throw a, tantrum. Um, but again, what's the perspective? And I'll personally tell you, through my growth journey, I used to be very much of a control freak. Like things had to go my way. And then when they didn't, it was like the world is falling apart. And through my journey, I've just I still have my like little self-pity party, but instead of like sinking down, now it's more even.
Yeah.
It's like, well, where is the lesson? Let's look at this differently. Where has been the growth? And I was talking to some entrepreneurs a couple of weeks ago. And I said, sometimes I get frustrated. Certain things are not moving faster. But then when I stay grounded and present, I realized that, if things were going a different way, I wouldn't have met you, right?
Yeah.
I would be experiencing what we're experiencing together right now. So is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? If you choose to look at things from the brighter side, and I say that with all due respect, because I think some things are harder than others. I personally, have dealt with grief. I lost my dad at a very early age. So there are certain things that are harder to deal with than others. But I do think perspective, it's a very important piece of life.
Yeah.
And how you look at things.
Yeah. And I think everybody can have a good life if you keep that balance and keep it in perspective.
Yeah.
Because there's really no bad life. I mean, horrible things happen. Don't get me wrong. Though I can point to a million things happening right now and more. I wouldn't want that life. But there's a lot of good things that happen too every single day.
Yeah. Yeah. We need more focus on the positive and the high vibrational stuff. I was actually just thinking about that today, about doing a post. Sometimes my friends are like, oh, you're so like a beauty queen, like with your messages. And I'm like, but I like them. And you know what? I think when we promote love and happiness and joy, I do think those are things that are, sadly, we need them, more of that in the world today.
For sure. For sure. It's easy to stay down. So when you're in trauma brain, the brain is self-selecting for the negative stuff because it's trying to keep you alive. And they want you to see that so that you can protect yourself. So if you're doing that all day long, then every single day looks dark. But one of the homework that we just had recently in my group was to notice when you're happy. And a lot of people who said, I'm never happy, came back and said, you know what? I'm happy quite a lot of the time. So you do have to pay attention to it. It's always there. You just may not notice.
And you know what? I think in the beginning, it might not be as amplified, right? Speaking of amplified and how you feel, but the more you become attuned to it and the more you seek it, right? You will find more of what you seek. So if you want to find more joy, you will find more joy. If you want to find more depressing stuff around, I mean, there's plenty of it, right?
Yes.
And like there's certain things I don't do. I don't watch the news because I don't want that negativity.
Yeah.
I'm very selective of headlines and staying on top, but I don't need to know. Like I believe that my power is into uplifting people one at a time. And that's what I'm going to focus my energy on.
Yeah, I'm the same. I don't watch the news either. I don't watch dark entertainment because I believe that we're all creation beings and our thoughts matter, our energy matters. And I want to put out lovely things. I want there to be more lovely things. Not to say, light balances dark. That's okay. But if you can see the gratitude in it, you can see the love in it, then that's going to flourish. And that's my mission. There's enough pain in the world.
Yes, there is. So Laura, what is one piece of advice you have for us or a favorite quote that you have?
So my thing right now is choose love. And for that reason, because there is a lot of darkness. And I do think that it matters. It's the little things, when hurt people. And as we grow up with that and we're carrying that, it's very easy to give it to someone else. It's like a little snowball going downhill. You have a positive one, you have a negative one, and it's just going to get bigger and bigger. It's like, which one do you want to roll? Because it's going to touch other people. And I would rather have my influence be a positive one, a loving one, a one that something that they're happy to carry on and pass to other people versus the ugliness. And we get it, but if you can let it go, forgive, then that's done. So I'm trying to keep that conscious. I urge other people to do that too. Just choose love. If you have a choice, and we always do, choose love.
Yeah, I love that. Choose love. because yeah, I mean, we can get into a whole other conversation based on that, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to leave it at that. Choose love. I wholeheartedly agree with you, Laura. Laura, tell us, where can people find us, and do you want to share anything exciting with us?
Oh, sure. My main website is lauragiles.org, and I've always got tons of exciting things going on. And if anybody wants to join my free group, then that's where I post the announcements, really. So we do things like we have a monthly talking circle where you get to be heard. Who doesn't want to be heard? We have moon circles for women, and there's always fun things going on that's popping up. Somebody else say, hey, let's do this. Hey, let's do that. And we'll do this. We have a local group and a virtual group. So, we do all kinds of fun things like dancing. We have cuddle parties, all kinds of things.
Oh, exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Social media?
Yes. I'm on Instagram and Twitter, and it's Laura Giles 804.
804.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Laura Giles 804. Awesome. Laura, I am grateful for you being today. Thank you for spreading light, and thank you for spreading love, especially today and every day, because it is so important. Rebels, I do hope that you're feeling the love, that you're feeling that light, and I do hope that you are choosing love. You're choosing to love yourself. You're choosing to spread love to those around you. If you have any questions, you know where to ask them. As always, do good, spread love, and be rebellious. We will see you next time. Thank you so much, Laura.
Thank you.
Did you enjoy the conversation? Like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Want to redefine your success equation to include a healthy body and a healthy mind? Check out our website at rebellious-studio.com.